Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Wednesday. Of course, Donald Trump addressing the nation yesterday, last night. Don't know if anybody watched it. I'm sure you did. It was highly entertaining. Very much the state, if you wanted to know, I guess, what's going on in America and where we really are, that was a good thing to watch. You had some Republicans refuse to even show up. You had one of them yelling out Al Green, not the singer Al Green, but was out, let's face it, was making a point to get thrown out. And then you had a couple of others walk out, and they were holding these sides, like these little paddle sides. If it wasn't, and Jason and I have said this a lot, and maybe not so much on the Patriot Show, but on the Half Empty Cup. Politics now is like pro wrestling, right? It's pro wrestling. That's what it is, and that was exactly what it felt like. Last night, Jason's wife Brooke, she sent me a clip, Idiocracy. If you haven't seen that movie, two things. Number one, dumb movie, stupid comedy that it grows on you. How's that? It's one of those movies that grows on you, but literally, it's crazy, the parallels. So in that movie, their President Camacho is giving a speech, and he's talking about there's no burrito coverage, the crops won't grow, but we got this really smart guy, right? We've got Elon Musk, right? And he's gonna fix it all in 1 week, and Jason, it definitely had that feel to it, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Idiocracy has, people have seen it. It's Joe's right. It's a Beavis. It's by Mike Judge. It's the Beavis and Butthead creator, but it's relevant. That's the whole point about the movie. The only reason people still talk about it is because it's relevant. And Brooke's like, why don't you, before we watch it, because we sat down, we had about a half hour before Trump was going to talk. He's like, I better watch this for the show tomorrow, so I have some sort of intelligent reaction to it. And she's like, why don't you watch some Idiocracy? I was like, well, yeah, the black president guy, Camacho. Okay, I know he has like 2 or 3 speeches, but it's like, so I clicked on YouTube and I popped it up just because it's been a while since I've seen it. And it's only 2 minutes. It's like 2.5 minutes. Well, you put it on the air, but there's a couple. They drop a lot of FCC violation words. If I get Jack to cut that, we might maybe play it in the next hour. But literally, I watched this before what happened last night. What happens in that 2-minute State of the Union President Camacho speech was happening in metaphorically at Trump's speech. Camacho comes out. He's a big, huge wrestler dude with big old arms. Comes running out there and flexing, and then he talks about. He gets all serious about all the problems. We're going to fix some stuff. And then some guys in the audience are like, yeah, you tried that before. You suck. Right, so
right.
The Democrats were using. The Democrats started yelling at him, and then he pulls out a machine gun and starts shooting it and stops the crowd. Well, that's Mike Johnson last night when Al Green was yelling and screaming. He hits the gavel and is like, escort this guy out of here. That's effectively the machine gun. And then President Camacho's like, I got the smartest guy in the world, and he's going to fix everything. And everyone looks up at the screen, and there's essentially our version of Elon Musk. And this movie was not made when Elon Musk was popular. Anyone even knew who he was. This was made way before in the 1990s, Joe.
Yeah, no one knew who that was. Yeah, President Camacho. Terry Crews was President Camacho. Yes. One of the Wilsons. Luke Wilson was the smartest guy in the world. And, it was a good show. And it tells you, listen, you know what? Do you need another reason why you need some gold? I mean,
something real.
And I
right?
get, listen, and a lot of people are and count me as what? I loved it, right? I loved Donald Trump was Donald Trump, man. He was exactly as promised, and delivered on the big stage. Here's the thing I'm going to tell you. And I know that and again, loved it. Want him to succeed like nobody's business. Unfortunately, guys, the math doesn't work. But, hey, he was out there, number one, talking about tax cuts, and we're not going to tax tips, we're not going to tax overtime, we're not going to tax Social Security, and I'm just thinking to myself, wait a minute, are you saying you're not going to tax tips and overtime? The service sector, that's where most of America now works. And boy, you talk about Social Security having problems with Medicaid and Medicare, that stuff all gets taxed. It sounds great. It does. Don't get me wrong. Heck, I love it. Get rid of the IRS. We can do it. There's going to be a period here. All of you better get ready. Listen. Be so much more diversified than you want to. How about that? Because I know. That was a great speech. Man, I feel great. Right? Yes! Donald Trump's the man! Well, his Treasury Secretary had some very interesting comments about Wall Street this morning. I'll fill you in on that. Plus, jobs. Where did they go? That's all coming up. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Wednesday. And let's just go through the numbers right now. Not great. Dow is now flat. So it started up higher. It's been going the wrong way all day. The S&P is down 18. The NASDAQ's down 66. The Dow's now down 10. The 10-year note higher today. So big things happening in the German bond market today. If we get to it, we talk about how bond yields should move. To give you an idea how big of the issue. So Germany just announced massive spend. Matter of fact, decided certain spending, we're not even going to worry about it, right? We're not even going to count it towards, we're supposed to only have this much debt, but when it comes to this, we're going to pretend, this pretend thing. German bond yields in less than 24 hours went from the 240, 240, 244, 243, it's now almost 280. So their 10-year note, our 10-year notes, 424. Their 10-year notes, 280, way below ours. They've been one of the better countries when it comes to their debt levels. But that's a massive move. By the way, the yield, to just give you an idea, Japan's almost 1.5%. The UK, another big jump there, almost back, closing in on 5% in the UK. France, a big move up. Gold, I said, get ready here. Right now, it's up 6 right now, 29.25. There was a sell-off real early when the U.S. markets opened. I have this feeling, and I don't know. They don't call me and tell me, but it kind of looked to me like anybody that was short gold just got out of the way. That's just what it looked like. Gold was briefly down almost over $20 for about 2 seconds. And now, like I said, up almost $7, $29.25. Silver is rolling here. And we knew this, right? So remember the March silver contract? Well, it's March now. Silver, $32.51 right now, up 58 cents. And like we've been talking about, Jason, if you haven't called us to get that IRA and get some of that into gold and silver, you may want to do it after you hear what the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said this morning, and said flat out, Wall Street is not the priority. Wall Street is not the priority. Well, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you what it means. He knows, hey, Wall Street was priced to perfection. Perfection doesn't exist. It's going to be a rough ride, but we're not going to look at that. We don't care. Right? We're real happy, though, about the 10-year note going down. He was really happy. And I'm like, God, and I like Scott. I like him so much more than Janet Yellen. But you understand why the 10-year note's falling, right? Everyone knows why. Because the bond market's worried. Hey, here's the problem. The bond market also knows how to do math. It says, hey, this isn't looking so great. ADP. Now, of all the next 3 days, we got ADP today, jobless claims tomorrow, the government jobs number on Friday. This was the least important, okay? And why do I say it's the least important? Well, it can be wild, right? It's another data point. It's been new, right? And what I mean new in the last 20 years. This is kind of a new thing. But they came out today. Only 77,000 jobs created in the month of February. That was half of what the expectations were. Small businesses were hurt the most. Matter of fact, small businesses were laying off. This is something Jason and I have talked about, right? The businesses now starting to feel all of the effects of all of this higher pricing, and now the consumer starting to slow down. By the way, the biggest disappointment in jobs going back several years, if there was a bright spot, and there really wasn't, the biggest job gainer, bars, waitresses, right? The low-paying jobs were where the job growth was, according to ADP. So, Jason, this is a start. Like we said, we're anticipating not great numbers on the job front. One day, the first day here so far, that's what we're seeing. ADP saying the wages were still decent. In other words, hey, they're still paying money, but they're just not hiring anybody anymore, right? And I think this number is trending in the wrong direction. Tomorrow we'll get jobless claims. That's going to be another interesting number. How high is that going to be? And then, of course, the government number on Friday. And just to give you an idea, ADP's been, 150 to 250. So this is the lowest print from ADP going back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months. Are we going to could we potentially see a negative government jobs number come Friday? I don't know. It's a possibility. I'm not saying that's going to happen, Jason, but you got to put that into the field of play.
I mean, Trump was one of the myriad of things he was saying yesterday, he talked about lower rates. He wants the lower rates. He said it, I think, at least twice. Yep. And so the jobless claims comes in hot tomorrow. The information that he wants, whether the numbers be real or fraudulent, if it spells a slowing of the economy and a recession headed our way, then that's not good for people to have jobs, right, Joe? Because the harder it gets then the tariffs don't necessarily mean a whole lot of good news for jobs, does it, Joe? When things get more expensive, businesses trim. So, hold on. I was talking to some guys, Joe, about their jobs. That was last week. Talking about how they didn't like their jobs very much. And then I was telling them, well, we might go through another phase where people are losing them. It's like, it's funny how terrible your job is until it's threatened, right? Your job sucks really bad up until the time where the people employing you can't afford to hold on to you.
So remember, next week, we've got to get the spending. Donald Trump, in his speech, wants the tax cuts, challenged the Democrats to vote for it, talked about, like I said, hey, I don't want to tax your tips. I don't want to tax your overtime. I don't want to tax your Social Security checks. All of those will resonate with the workers, right? Obviously, the rich people get all theirs. Everyone gets something, right? Everyone gets something. The problem with hey, we're not going to tax the tips, the overtime, the Social Security money. We need that money, right? So that is a big, big cost. Now, remember the strategy. Grow your way out. Why is he doing it? Well, you're going to have more money. I'm going to take a large portion of the working class that works to get some kind of tips. I'm not going to tax it. I'm not going to tax the overtime. I'm not going to tax your Social Security. It leaves more money, right? Because remember, they want to try to grow out of it. The problem is how do you pay for it all? And even in that speech, Jason, he talked about a balanced budget. Right? I mean, you would be, listen, I'm all for it.
Good luck.
Hey, you're talking about, defense spending would have to be cut in half, get rid of the IRA. I mean, Jason, it can be done. Let's not kid ourselves. It can be done. What price do you pay to get it done? That's what you got. You've got to look out for it. I'll say this. There was some easy wins, a man's a man, a woman's a woman, right? I mean, and all that nonsense. We shouldn't have been spending money on that nonsense to begin with. The tariffs. He did say, okay, all right, we're going to call it a little disturbance. Right? It's a little disturbance. So that's Trump kind of acknowledging, right, in his own way, okay, this isn't, hey, before all the good stuff happens, there's going to be bad stuff. So he talked about Honda. See, by the way, if you see, Honda doesn't make very many cars, but here in the U.S., they don't sell very many. But they were going to build a car plant in Mexico that was supposed to open in 2027. They say they're going to bring it to Indiana. Sounds great. 2 years from now, maybe you'll have a Honda plant in Indiana. And I think that's, if you want to call that a little disturbing, that's about how long it takes, right? It's going to take a while. By the way, the fruits, the vegetables, there's nothing we can do. Right? The weather is the weather, right? You can't grow fruits and vegetables in the United States in the wintertime, right? So those things are going to cost more no matter what. So he's acknowledging, Jason, and he downplayed it, and I get it. What are you really going to say, right? Hey, this is going to suck? No, you can't say that. Highlighted Doge. He brought up the Social Security stuff, and I just hate it. It's just, yes. Did they have people in the system that old? Yes. They did. They knew it. They've always known it. That wasn't a secret.
You got a good reaction out of the crowd.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and there's, and again,
one guy
knows that. None of those people are getting checks. I'm just saying, none of them are getting checks. They're not.
One guy he said there's one citizen that's 360 years old. He mentioned that. But let me
older than the country, and there is. Yeah. There is.
So just to step back for a second, when the balanced budget, there is, in theory, a way how he's proceeding. You could balance the budget, but it would be complete destruction of the economy. Remember, the tariffs, when stuff's coming in, that's a tax on those goods coming in that goes to the government. Now, in these other governments, and I actually watched Justin Trudeau yesterday. That his speech before Trump came on. When they tariff us, which these other countries are going to tariff the United States, that's companies sending stuff out that are getting taxed going out. So that doesn't cost our government anything. The tariffs coming in, it adds revenue. So technically, if you have a ridiculous trade war, Joe, there in theory, you can bring enough tariff money in supposedly to balance the budget. And, very, very unlikely, but in theory, how destructive would that be if you can actually balance the budget through tariffs, Joe? Half the country would be jobless, probably.
Gold's up a dozen. Losses are picking up on Wall Street. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason here on this Wednesday. Right now, gold $2,930. I'm not surprised. Been saying it all week this week. Don't be surprised if we end up with record high gold prices. 3,000 is definitely a possibility here. $20 gold pieces is still the way to go here. $3,035. I told you yesterday, I begged. Buy below 3,000. Well, you still can. You're just not going to see that opportunity, unfortunately. And it's just a math thing. Central banks continuing to buy gold. Again, this year, it doesn't matter. They don't care about the price. They care about diversifying. They care about, look at what these bond markets are doing. Donald Trump's speech yesterday, I loved it. It was awesome. It sounded great. Just doesn't quite work that way. Now, one of the things that he talked about, too, was this gold card. Real excited about this. $5 million to citizenship. And of course, what is that? Well, that's just, super rich guys, right? The wealthy of the wealthiest pay us $5 million. You can be an American citizen. And then they can start paying taxes here, opening businesses here, doing all this stuff here. And Jason, in theory, it sounds really good. The issue that I have is, aren't most of these guys already here? And what I mean by that is, dude, this is meant to get super, super wealthy billionaires to become U.S. citizens. Well, they're billionaires. This is a global economy. My guess is they already have a lot of interest in the United States and are probably already spending a lot of money here, but we'll get some. But the illusion of, $5 million is so much money, right, for us regular people. But, Jason, when you talk about deficits of almost $3 trillion, we're not going to make it up that way. But it is a good talk. I love the idea. Hey, instead of letting in all the guys that are going to be, let's face it, the dishwashers and the janitors and the cooks, let's get these really great business people. And make it easy. Just write us a check for $5 million, and presto, you're a U.S. citizen. I'll say this: if you thought the high-end housing market is probably going to get a lot more expensive if that happens. But it's something where it's an interesting idea. I hope it works. I hope these guys can come in here and do all of this stuff. I'll just say this. There's been talk about the tariffs. Howard Lutnick, he may be the stooge in the Trump administration. I'm not sure. He may be it because, and I forget, I want to say, I don't know if it was Ukraine or something else. He put his foot in his mouth a week and a half ago about something. I forget what, and I gave him a pass. I'm like, all right, well, maybe it happened, blah, blah, blah. Yesterday, I actually saw him. He was on Bloomberg. I saw it. I was home. I saw it. Saying that, well, maybe we're going to work something out with Canada. Maybe the tariffs won't be that bad. And, of course, the reason right now, they're saying fentanyl. And he just said, well, we're not seeing any increase in the amount of fentanyl being seized, and we're not seeing any increase or decrease in the amount of Americans dying from fentanyl. But maybe there'll be a deal. And I'm like, well, wait, if that's your metrics, well, then there's no way there's a deal. Because you just said we're not finding any more fentanyl at the border, and the same amount of American. Now, I didn't say that was the standard. You said it, right? Hey, we're going to judge it by mortalities and how much fentanyl we seize. But then said, but man, maybe the tariffs won't be so bad that there's wiggle room, and that could happen as soon as tomorrow. That's what he said. As soon as tomorrow. So that's today. We'll see. But in order for these jobs to come back here, in order for let's take these guys that are going to pay the $5 million, okay? In order for them to decide to, I don't know, build whatever in the United States, Jason, these tariffs got to stay. They have to stay. If they don't stay, then there's no reason for them to actually bring the jobs back to the United States. They have to stay. I don't understand why they're saying that they wouldn't. It won't work unless that's what we do.
A tariff in this situation is full on just a tax. And I know Trump is he pulled the taxes back a little bit in his first term, and he's going to pull the taxes back in the second term. This is the same numbers game that I talk about, Joe, that, hey, we're going to cut the government back $1 billion here, $100 billion there. But if you add $500 billion somewhere else, it doesn't, you're not cutting. So if you cut taxes and it's, I don't know, the revenue drops down to a certain amount with taxable revenue, but the tariffs bring in, twice as much. Well, the tariff is always going to be put onto the customer. And taxes usually, when they're put into place, as the standard of living gets lower every decade, it's not going anywhere, right, Joe? It's not going to go anywhere. I'll tell you where it's going to go. If a Democrat gets elected in 2028, he'll be the hero that gets rid of the tariffs, and then he's going to raise the taxes, right? So it's a lose-lose situation. It's never when a bankrupt nation cannot pay its bills, it will tax the hell out of everybody. It won't come to an end. It'll be tax. And in this way, the way Trump is doing it, it's just disguised as a tariff, and we can point the finger at these evil enemy nations. It's going to be it's economic warfare. I mean, Justin Trudeau, Joe, the decorum, the politeness of politics has just left the building. Trump has ushered in the new age of impolite politics. And Justin Trudeau, he's on his way out. I think he's got a couple days, I think, if I heard that right. But he's like, he spoke, I'm going to speak to one American in particular. And then he just said, Donald. Now, I think some people would just be like, oh, he's trying to, warm up to him. That's not what you do. Go to a court. When you have traffic court, go to court and call the judge by his first name and see how far that gets you. Right, Joe? And Trudeau knows. He's like, this is economic warfare.
He did call him dumb. Well, yeah, he did. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, yeah, not a lot of decorum.
Disrespectful.
We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason here on this Wednesday. $20 gold pieces, $3,035. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to just get used to this number and get used to it pretty quickly here. Next week's another big week. They have to get the budget done. We have no idea right now where the debt level is. I think we can all agree that, okay, we know we're somewhere $37 trillion in change. Donald Trump wanting massive tax cuts to be approved. And then, of course, tariffs as a way of offsetting. And Jason, the problem that we have is right now with the tariffs that they're planning, we only get about halfway to the amount of increased spending, and most of that spending in the form of tax cuts. So we're in this situation where I just don't know how the math's going to add up here. It's going to be a difficult situation. The one bright spot, I do think rates have a chance to head at least lower for a little bit here because I think these jobs numbers are going to be very weak, and this will give the bond market more concern. And we could get some lower rates, but if you don't have a job, the lower rates don't matter, right? That's kind of the problem that a lot of people will face. So we'll see what happens inside. I think it based on what I saw yesterday, it doesn't look like the Democrats want to cooperate. So the Republicans, we'll see. They were able to do it in the confirmation process to stay in line here. We'll see how this plays out, but this is another win-win for gold. So I think about here this week, gold's going to win because obviously the jobs have slowed way down, right? And you can point to any number of reasons of why that you think that has occurred. Then next week, gosh, if they don't do it, if they don't pass a budget, right, gold's going to go absolutely crazy, right? Can't have that happen. And then if they end up pass whatever they're going to pass, it is going to be massive. One of the things that I see the Democrats kind of building into, they don't want any cut to Medicaid. That was another big chunk of money that the Trump administration was looking at to make it not look as bad, the deficits not to be as bad. Why do I feel like we're going to get the tax cuts and we're going to get tariffs, but that's it? In other words, all the other things all these other cuts, the Democrats are going to say no to. And Jason, again, another great scenario for gold. Gold almost wins no matter what happens.
Well, that's kind of where we're at. You have inflation, so as long as you have inflation, that's the only thing that really matters to gold in the end. If you're going to print more, the gold's going to go up. But then you bring in economic stress, right, Joe? You bring in all the stuff that's going on economically, and then on top of that, a worldwide economic system. It's not like economically you have a lot of real actual competition going on. You have sales markets with companies, and most of the big American companies are operating outside of the United States. So essentially, America has exported their economic system all throughout the world. The banking system, which was started in England, all throughout the world. Even the religion of the world is spread in certain ways all throughout the world. It's so integrated that's good for gold, because if you have bankers and huge corporations at the top sucking all of the air out of the room, gold's going to go up. It's absolutely everybody's fighting to get their hands on cash, and meanwhile, these guys are putting their hands on gold, putting their hands on properties, putting their hands on businesses, and it's a loser's game running after those dollars, right, Joe? It's a winner's game going after gold.
Yeah, and then think about this: what Germany's budget just announced. A $500 billion what they're going to call special purpose off-budget vehicle. What? Wait, what do you mean off-budget? Well, we're going to spend it, but we're going to call it off-budget, so don't worry about it, because it's going to break all of the spending rules that are in place, but we've got to do it. This is what we're talking about. This is an avalanche of spending coming. Then they're going to come up with all of this nonsense. Oh, well, it's a special purpose, so we're going to say it's off budget. This is a one-off. Jason, it's a one-off, so we're just not going to count it. These are the things that... It sounds fine. Oh, okay. Yeah. You're talking about spending $500 billion and then saying, well, we don't want to, don't hold that against us. The bond markets are absolutely raging this morning. But, Jason, everybody is going to be doing. We're not the only ones. The amount of spending these governments are going to be doing is going to be off the charts, because the word of the day is let's try to grow our way out of it, and that just means a lot higher gold price. 800-951-0592. It's a special off-budget spending, so yeah, that's different. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason on this Wednesday. I guess, Jason, are we here? Is it official? Do we have to support nonsense? I think this is kind of where we're at right now, because if there was a good answer, they would have done it. I get it. Why does Germany come out today and say, well, we got this special vehicle, off-budget, one-time, $500 billion spending, and then, of course, and on top of that, Germany also said, oh, by the way, we need to exempt any defense spending in the main budget. So a special purpose off-budget vehicle, $500 billion of investment infrastructure, which we're just going to pretend we're not doing it, even though we are. We're going to spend the money. We're just going to, not count it. And then, oh, by the way, we have to exempt any defense spending in the main budget. Of course, this is something where Europe, right? I think you're going to see announcements over the next week from France, England, Spain, right? Jason, they're all going to do this, right? Every one of those. Well, if Germany's doing it, we're going to do it. And this is exactly what it is that we're trying to tell people. This doesn't go away. There's not a good choice. We know this is nonsense. It's nonsense. It doesn't work this way. But what other choice do we have? But this is why when we sit there, why are central banks still buying gold at $3,000? Why? Matter of fact, they're not even slowing down. You know they bought more gold last year than the year before? Yeah, they did. Why? The answer is simple. Because they know it's nonsense. As long as you don't know it's nonsense. And for that, I give Donald Trump an A+. He delivered. I mean, it was I full disclosure, I hate watching those things. I normally don't. I think they're embarrassing. And I think they're embarrassing because you're telling me this just shows you how dysfunctional our Congress really is. But neither here nor there. Jason, for the people that wanted to hear Donald Trump's message, they clapped all night long. You know that they did. And it's hard, right? It's hard. Because then I come out and I tell you, guys, this is nonsense. Do yourself a favor, get more protected. Just do that little favor. You're going to be much better off if you do. But you know what, Jason? I don't know that they want to hear it. They want it to be so, right? They want to believe that we can do all this stuff and somehow magically the budget's going to be balanced. It's not going to cost us anything. And there's going to be just a little disturbance. But other than that, it's going to be great. I'll just tell you this. There's a reason why the Treasury Secretary today said that Wall Street isn't their focus. It's telling you something. Are you going to do anything about it? 800-951-0592.